So YouTube, is Clormo with another tutorial for Alchemy in Logic Pro X, and today I'm gonna be talking about Alchemy Additive window and the partial bar display, which is inside the Additive Edit window. And there's two parts to that. So the partial bar display parameters is what I'm gonna explain today. That's gonna take a good amount of time of the video, so I'm gonna cut a shot there and then complete it in the next video. And as usual, if this is the first time that you are watching one of my videos and you like what I see, please hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, as usual. Without further ado, let's just go into the Logic Pro X window. This is where I stopped last time with two zones. I did some exchanging. I explained these two guys here, the key map editor and the waveform. And now I'm gonna go into this button right here, the additive. So the additive edit window, it shows me these two views. I'm gonna be concentrating only on this view up here, which is the partial bar display parameters. But to start that, I need to do a little bit of an overview of what the additive edit window will do. First thing that I need to mention, if you don't remember, if you're watching any of these videos of mine for the first time, is that you're only going to have this available if your imported sample came in the form of an additive or spectral. So keep that in mind, because if you bring something in sampler mode, then you're not going to be able to access any of this. But it's just a quick caveat. The additive window, really what it does is just lets you edit detailed additive data or create your own designs. So you can see we have bars and we have some points. We can shape anything, every parameter of it. We're gonna see that in a second. So this is very intense sound design, very good for experimenting. And in the future, when I finish all the theory and engine explanation behind Alchemy, what I'm going to concentrate is in some of this part, because my forte, I think, or I like to believe, is the sample based hip-hop making. So I see a lot of potential here, and that's what I want to concentrate on, some sound designing and more specific tutorials in that way. But anyway, let's continue with the overview of the window. Additive synthesis, if you don't remember from my previous videos, represents each sound as a sum of individual partials. That's why this is called the bar display, or the partial bar display. Each partial is defined by amplitude, which would be the volume, tune, which would be the pitch, panning, which is the balance, and the phasing. And each one changes over time. These are like snapshots that you're gonna be seeing here. So these bars and these points are snapshots in time, and they're gonna transition smoothly into each of them and create the resultant sound that you're gonna, in the end, listen through Alchemy. The additive edit window will show the additive data into graphical displays, as I said, the partial bar display, and this is the partial envelope, but this is gonna be covered in the next video. For the partial bar display, you're gonna have up to 600 partials with its own parameters, and you can edit each individual partial or group of partials depending on what you choose on these parameters above the bar display. Another that I want to make here is that you need to be mindful of the number of partial controls on the source subpage, so that you make sure that you can hear every partial that you want to affect. If you have a value, for example, that's lower in number of partials that you set in that knob, and I'm gonna just exit here if you don't remember what that was all about. You see this knob here, the number of partials, this guy goes all the way to 600. So it was at 131. I'm gonna keep it a little bit higher. And that's also dependent on the sample. You're just seeing what I have available for that source still. If I just go to edit, I'm still working with that. So if you have something lower, for example, like 50, and you want to edit in the window the partial number 80, which is not shown here in the example, then it makes no difference because you can't reach that partial output wise. That's also going to be dependent, obviously, if the sample is long enough and has good enough duration. Remember, this is time to time, so if it has enough duration to reach that partial as well. So keep those things in mind. You're dealing not only with everything that composes that sample and fine-tuning it, but it's how it changes through time. So if you're not letting Alchemy access that whole time frame, that whole region, then you won't be able to do some of the stuff that you think you may be able to do. But anyway, let's just start talking about the partial bulk display parameters. You have the first thing is this overall button, which is on by default, and this one works in combination with the other 4 that are after it. What it's gonna do is that combined with those buttons, you're gonna have partial values that are average across all envelope points, which are these guys down here. The face button, though, only deals with the partial envelope. So just keep that in mind. The volume button, tune button, pan button, and the face buttons will let you edit those parameters, but for individual partials only. For example, if the overall and volume are selected, I'm seeing the average through time for that parameter. If I turn off overall, then I see volume, and you can see how the envelope also changes, right? So that's gonna let me then go specific with each of the parameters of that sound. Same with the tuning, have a different set of envelope points and partials. The panning has a different set of parameters as well, and then the facing, see that is only gonna be tied to the partial envelope. So that's gonna, you see that this is my envelope, like my main envelope. When I don't have the overall, the face is gonna show the same thing down here. It doesn't really affect it. Now moving to the right of that, we have the mode pop-up menu, and there's 6 different modes. What that's gonna let me choose a group of related partials for editing. It's quite intuitive and I think simple to understand, but I want to be slow and breaking down a little bit. When you are editing a group, remember that with other parameters in Alchemy, and that's true for many things in Logic as well, you're gonna be retaining the relative differences between the partials. So if you're editing the group, you're editing everything, and everything will be conforming to whatever particular partial you select as your, let's say, master partial. So if I select a group, I'm gonna have to go to a specific partial. All the other ones are gonna try to morph based on what I changed there. So it's kind of similar to when you are trying to mix and go to your console and select all the tracks and then choose one and try to adjust the levels of it. All the other ones are gonna logarithmically or just scale in a way that conforms to what you're doing. The first one that we have, so probably name 1, which is only gonna affect only the selected partial. Let me just show you real quick. I'm gonna go to volume, just randomly choose one. I chose 16. I can go up and down, and just the trackball is just going to the right. And for each corresponding edit that I do here, I get an effect on the envelope. If I go to all, you guessed it, I'm gonna affect all of them. So no matter which one I choose, I'm gonna affect them all. But that's true for, you saw that if I chose this one, then everything to the left will be affected. And if I go to the very extreme, I'll affect everything else. So that's, like I said, very intuitive. If you go to even, you're only gonna affect even number partials. Let me just pick this 12. You see all the even numbers are editable. And let me just hit play and for that loop as I start changing, just so that you hear something. And you get a feel for what will happen. Let me go. This is just the volume. Let's just, I think the tuning. Perhaps if I open a little bit the looping region. Next one in line that we have is fifths. That's only going to affect partials that are fifths apart. If you don't understand that, go back to learning your basics with keyboards and notes and notation and music theory, and you'll understand that if I have fifths and I choose this partial and it has a particular pitch, I'm going to affect anything that's a fifth apart of that. Same with octaves. If I go to octaves, then obviously I'm gonna affect anything that's an octave apart. Odd will change odd ones, you know. So I had even. If I go to odd, then I obviously will be editing odd partials only. You can also scroll left and right here with these two arrows and cycle between them. I'm gonna go back to 1. Then we move to the right of that and we have the shape pop-up menu. And what that's gonna let me do is choose a weighted group of related partials for editing. What I want to make an analogy here is that I see this as editing a group with a certain tone to them. So you can kind of tell that by just looking at it. If you're you have a good music theory background, at least about what tunes and pitches are, you can affect normal, which will affect only the selected partial, and grouped partials that precede it, which is nothing different from what I did. Let me just go to the panning one. Well, let me go to the volume one where I see them here. It's nothing similar like when I did all. Nothing different, I should say. So that's normal. If I go to flat, I'm gonna affect all group partials evenly. So you see that gives me the same effect, but without regard to where I choose, I'm gonna affect all of them evenly. If I go to bright, I'm only gonna be affecting the higher group partials, and this is not confusing, but could be a little bit difficult to tell if you're not sure how the sample is tuned. Like if you're just experimenting and you start changing based on this parameter, you might not get the result you want because maybe the sample doesn't have a lot of portions that are bright enough, but just gives you the idea. You see how I'm trying to change here something, and it's kind of trying to focus on the right end, which in a way would signify graphically a higher note or higher pitch, which makes sense. It would be a brighter sound. It would be at the brighter end of the EQ spectrum, for so to speak, and dark would be the opposite of that. We'll have lower group partials. So if I do the same, you see that if I bring this one up, it only affects the lower grouped partials because I am constraining that to dark. So all you need to know here with these parameters is just that you are setting each combination of these is gonna let you constrain what you can shape for the partials and sculpt the sound. There's a lot of analogies that we can draw from the different synths in Logic where you are kind of sculpting, but this is the one that really gets very close to that. Either way, let's go to the right. There should be a button here called the snap pitch button, but that is only visible when the tune button is active. And there you have it. This button is going to snap to a logical pitch. Thus, when you edit a bar, your pitch allowance is limited to values that are coherent to the partial characteristics. If I select that, I'm snapping to a coherent pitch, to a pitch that conforms to the partials and the envelope that I'm dealing with. And when I try to edit that, then everything else, you see that kind of snaps and adjusts to, no matter what, how I move it, everything else goes to a pitch that will best be suited for it. And this is something that just Alchemy is calculating, so I can't really tell you why it does that, but I guess you will have to trust the program to do that for you if you choose to deal with the snap pitch button. Moving to the right, then there's the breakpoint button, and this is gonna open a pop-up menu with a number of partial envelope point commands, and all of these are gonna tie directly to the envelope down here where the points are, so you can copy, paste breakpoints, tune, and paste all breakpoints tune data. But in reality, these two here are gonna be discrete to whatever is selected. Let me show you. If I go to pan, then I can paste and paste all to whatever I have, which is in this case is the panning. So you can, again, you can copy, paste only or everything. Like the first two will do copy and paste everything into all the points, or you can just go to whatever you have selected and either paste to a specific point, which will be this, or paste to all of the points that I have, whatever I have selected here. Then I move to the right. You have this image button, which if you are not feeling it, yes, you can actually use this to import a PNG file, and it has to be a PNG format, and it's going to convert it to additive synthesis data. But all that we're going to get to later. But this is something very crazy. You just take an image and convert it to data, so now you can edit samples and create sounds using images. Just how cool is that, right? And then last but not least, we have this clear button, which is just gonna remove all partials and resets the partial bar display and the envelope, as you have seen. So now I have completely removed all that information that I brought with the sample. And notice how even the samples are no longer loaded into my source D. So I'm gonna hit play. That doesn't really it's not really gonna change anything, because I already have on source C another sample that's triggering, and it's one of those grand plug samples, so it didn't really do much. But if you only had one sample loaded, then obviously you were going to change your whole sound completely. I'm not going to save this session because I want to keep what we had from the other menu. So I'm going to go back here and just show you that you can also zoom in and out and scroll through the different partials. It's not letting me do anything here because there is nothing else after it, so it just constrains me. If there was more, I could zoom into the 600 level, but I can zoom in though. I can zoom into this lonely guy here, and I can go back and, you know, try to reshape everything from zero myself. But since we're dealing with, let's go to normal and 1. Since I am, let me see. Yeah, if I click over here, you see I can go on and on and on, and bloop, I can keep doing that stuff and fill out all those partial bars. But anyway, if you want to get creative, you can start with a blank canvas, and that's something that I want to obviously incorporate in those videos in that sound designing workshop, like one of the viewers suggested. Probably gonna steal that, man, and call it that. So anyways, I'll see you in the next video where I'm gonna be talking then about the partial envelopes, close that loop out, and then I think we're gonna be ready to go into the spectral window, which is gonna have a considerable amount of parameters, but it's not gonna be that different from what I showed you here. Is going into the waveform data, into that additive and spectral, and changing everything, or being able to access the parameters to fine tune and sculpt that. Then from that, we're gonna get out finally and go to the main filters and all the other stuff that we're missing still to come. Thanks for the support. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, as I said in the beginning, and you liked it, then you know what to do. If you want to check out my other work, then you see that bar down below in the video border. That's all my social media contacts where you can see my other work, which is mostly poetry, beat making, and this type of stuff, you know, this tutorial making. I intend to make a video actually on how my site looks now with the new look. I'm still working with that because it's still under construction. It's almost done. I hope to finish it this weekend, and then I'm gonna show you how you can get beats from the beat store. There are free beats, there are beats for sale, different licenses, affordable prices. So if you are a rapper looking for beats and you want to collaborate, don't be afraid, and I'll show you that in a separate video. But for now, just leave with this note, and thanks for the support, and peace out, YouTube.